He was quite possibly the most singular player in the history of basketball, as no player played bigger than his size like he did. Maybe the most passionate player ever. That's the story of Allen Iverson, first overall pick in the greatest draft class in NBA history. But more than just great players, 96 saw the entry of revolutionary personalities and icons, those who charted the path of the next 2 decades of pro basketball in the shadow of Michael Jordan's legacy. Stats and accolades are secondary when looking back on Iverson. No player had a greater cultural impact on the NBA than he did. His arrival was an inflection point, where the imagery of hip-hop that dominated popular culture reached the players of the NBA. The NBA was searching for the next Michael Jordan, and the closest thing to him arrived in Los Angeles, but little did we know that Jordan's successor as the face of the league would be the first Allen Iverson. He was who a generation of players wanted to be, and exactly what the NBA didn't want. Where stars of the past wanted to show the world respectable images, as those were the way to earn endorsement riches, Iverson did the opposite, and still became a megastar. He still hung with his friends from back home, and he still dressed like they did. He had no desire to become someone else just because he was good at basketball.
This is my place, man. This is why I can breathe at. Get away from the fake superstar life, man. Come on back home, man. Around your people, man. Start feeling like Allen Iverson, man. You know, the real Allen Iverson.
He was unapologetically himself, a product of a part of America ravaged by the war on drugs, and of a generation that knew how they dressed didn't make them poor. So why change just because they got rich? He terrified much of America. Where Shaquille O'Neal made family-friendly rap albums, Iverson made hardcore gangster rap that earned admonishment from NBA Commissioner David Stern. And after the Malice at the Palace, when the NBA desperately wanted to show America its league wasn't full of thugs, it instituted a dress code that seemed to point directly at Iverson.
Players must dress in business casual attire during any team or league business, so expect to see sport jackets and slacks rather than throwback jerseys and T-shirts.
Yeah, honestly, I'm 30 years old. I should be able to wear what I want to wear.
The league let him have his time, but then it had to stop. Out went the Answer's enormous white tees, and in came the fashion show we see in the tunnels of NBA arenas every night. Iverson was the defining player of his era, whether you liked it or not. Okay, let's back up. Iverson officially became the top pick in the 96 draft June 26th of that year.
Allen Iverson from Georgetown University.
Is there anybody that can stop you one-on-one?
I don't think so.
3 years earlier, that eventuality seemed impossible. The Virginia State Player of the Year in both football and basketball, and state champion in both sports, Iverson was the best high school athlete in America as a junior. But on Valentine's Day 1993, Iverson and his friends were involved in a fight in a bowling alley in Hampton, Virginia. The particulars of the incident remain unclear, but Iverson was arrested and, at age 17, tried as an adult for a charge intended to protect black Virginians from lynching. Instead, it yielded Iverson a 15-year prison sentence with 10 years suspended. After 4 months behind bars, Iverson was granted clemency by Governor Doug Wilder and, in 1995, had his conviction overturned. This is how America was introduced to Iverson, but they got to know him when, after a desperate plea from Iverson's mother, John Thompson agreed to take Iverson on Georgetown's basketball team. It was a perfect fit off the court, but would take some on-court work, with the big man-centric Thompson turning his offense over to a guard for the first time. But there he was, with his coach towering over him in timeouts with kente cloth on their jerseys, looking like he belonged nowhere else in the world. As a sophomore, Iverson averaged 25 points per game and led the Hoyas to the Elite Eight, their best tournament finish in 7 years. Needing money to support his family, Iverson became the first Georgetown player to declare for the draft before exhausting his eligibility.
And that clears the way for Allen Iverson to become a 76er.
Congratulations, you're number one.
All right, thanks a lot.
Iverson was the smallest player ever taken number one. Particularly striking when shot blocker Marcus Camby, the reigning National Player of the Year, was available. But Philly shunned conventional wisdom and built the team around a maybe 6 feet tall, maybe point guard. What they got was the most Philly athlete who wasn't created by a screenwriter. In one of those towns that thinks they work harder than everybody else, they had a player who worked harder than them. He might not have cared for practice, but fans didn't see that. They saw Iverson hurl himself into defenders and hit the deck for loose balls.
He'd get knocked down and then continue to play, and we'd look at each other and say nobody could play through a hit like that.
This guy has such courage. You love the fact that he is fearless.
and the greatest crossover dribble that the league had ever seen.
You are helpless when AI has it going on. This guy is amazing. What a play by Allen Iverson. I do not believe it.
At least once a game, this guy will do something that makes you just fall out of your seat.
On March 12, 1997, Iverson did something that seemed impossible. He humbled Michael Jordan.
Iverson has Jordan. Allen shakes free. Gets two!
That crossover, to this day, defines the importance of Allen Iverson. Yeah, it was just one play. And no, the Sixers didn't win that night. But that guy with a small afro that would lead to his trademark braids, bringing the perfectly polished Jordan, the biggest star in sports, to his knees, defiantly informed the world that whatever deference he owed Jordan to anyone else stopped at the lines of the court.
So I went to a Charlotte game, and I was telling them how much I loved him and admired him, and telling him how much he was my hero. And he was like, well, I couldn't have been too much of a hero to you if you crossed me like that. So that was the only conversation we had about that.
In the 3 years before Iverson got to Philadelphia, the Sixers averaged around 22 wins per year. In 96-97, the Sixers only won 22 games, but Iverson won Rookie of the Year and accepted the trophy in a do-rag. It wasn't until the lockout season in 1999 that Iverson and the Sixers finished above 500 and went to the playoffs, but they won in the first round. For the next 5 seasons, Philly, coached by Larry Brown, would reach at least the East Semis. That season was also the first of 4 when Iverson would lead the league in scoring. He would also lead the league in steals 3 times while in Philly. But the most impressive stat Iverson put in every year was the first in the box score: minutes played. Iverson was generously listed at 6 feet, 165 pounds. And though much of his game centered around drawing contact, enduring punishment, and racking up free throw attempts, Iverson averaged over 39 minutes per game his first 12 seasons, leading the league 7 times. Pound for pound, the game never saw a greater warrior. But the year was 2001. This was the year the Sixers finally figured out how to build around Iverson, ditching plans to give him a second score and making the offense all about Iverson shooting and passing, and everyone else, Kemba Mutombo, Aaron McKie, Eric Snow, and others, doing everything else. It was probably Brown's greatest coaching performance, and it got Philly to the NBA Finals for the first time in 18 years.
The 76ers are the Eastern Conference champions, and Allen Iverson stamps his name in the annals of greatness.
The Sixers lost to the Lakers in 5 in the finals, but simply making it was a triumph that validated Iverson's career like championships do for others. The moment he stepped over Tyronn Lue in Game 1 of the 2001 Finals is cemented in NBA lore.
Baseline right, he backs up, he fires 2 ball, got it again! He's way too good! Steps over Tyronn Lue.
The guy who almost ended up a convict, who was too small to build around, shot too much, practiced too little, and didn't seem to own a suit, got close enough to smell a tight. He was not an NBA champion, but that season he won over much of America, who got to see what made Philly love him so much. The fire, passion, and showmanship that Iverson exuded got his team farther than anyone expected. After all those years, he became a made man.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.